Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson. Thanks for joining me for my weekly guitar blog. It's March 9th, 2014, and this week we're going to do a lesson discussing the phrasing of asymmetric lines. Now, this question was sent in from Ian. He's out in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he wrote in with this email. Some of my favorite music is quite lopsided in regard to how the riffs sound. I like a lot of jazz stuff, in particular Thelonious Monk, but I also like a lot of rock and punk stuff too. So whether it's the jazz guys or someone like Vernon Reid, any players that jam out the disjointed lines really grab my ear. Could you make a lesson covering some tips on creating riffs and licks that have a skewed sound away from the diatonic keys? Thanks from Ian in Tulsa, Oklahoma, USA. Well, hey, thanks for writing in, Ian. You know, music that applies chromatic concepts or is to some degree polytonal offers listeners either a mild or possibly even an extremely contorted musical effect. Now, obviously, some bands and soloists will take this sound to the extreme, but it's often more common for groups like Vernon Reid's band Living Colour to inject a fresh sound with unusual harmonies and melodic lines for the effect of simply stretching the musical fabric more than anything else. So in this video, I'll be showing a few examples that you can use to either introduce this concept into your playing or to expand phrases like this that you may already know. For the video here, I'll be dividing these rather incoherent sounding phrases into two categories of use. One will be a category of riffs, which if you're not too sure what that is, it's just a musical phrase that might be applied as more or less a primary rhythm part to be performed within a verse, bridge, or chorus section of song. And the other category I'll be discussing for the video will be just simply plain old guitar licks. Now, the first couple examples I have fall into that riffs category, with the initial idea being one that arpeggiates a couple of altered chord harmonies in the key of A. So here's how this idea sounds when it's performed slowly. Okay, here's a little faster. So you can see riffs like this are very interesting sounding, and as you can tell by applying these altered sounds, we pretty much instantly generate that disjointed, angular style of riff. And this idea can also be applied away from the structures of arpeggiated chord harmonies by just simply leaning more into a specific scale and having that scale approach be your main line of thought. Now, my next example is rather interesting because it uses two independent chromatic lines. One is ascending on the 6th string, and the other one is going to be descending on the 4th string. And as you'll find out when you mess around with this concept, this is a really cool idea that you can experiment with and have it pretty much always produce these interesting sounding polyfunctional musical ideas. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off bouncing between the 6th to 4th string like this. Then we're going to head over to that 6th fret where we're going to move vertically across. You can see now we're creeping down and we're going up still on the 6th string, and then we're going to head to the 8th fret of the 6th string and wrap up on the 9th fret of the 5th string. Okay, one more time. And then we're going to head into a longer 16th note phrase. It's going to go like this. Here it is again. And here's both of those measures together now. Okay, that's another pretty interesting idea to mess around with. But next, let's move on to testing this concept out with a few guitar licks. Now, if you've ever made a study of licks played by jazz guitar players who use a lot of interesting outside chromatic lines, such as maybe Alan Holsworth or Pat Martino, or if you've ever had the opportunity to read a book by actually one of my old teachers from GIT there, Joe Diorio, it's called Intervallic Designs, then I'm sure you've been exposed to the world of playing licks that are very angular in their construction, and almost, I suppose you could say, laid out on the guitar fingerboard in a more mathematical way. Now, these types of licks are great when played fast, and in a general sense, all that really matters in the grand scheme of things with these licks is the note that you wind up choosing to end on. And what you do in between, which is probably going to be a lot of chromatic, sort of structured mathematical lines, is just really pure freedom of expression. You can almost do whatever you want. So in applying this concept, I have two licks for you. The first one covers multiple positions. It sounds like this. I'll play it slowly at first. Here it is again. You can see I'm doing a descending chromatic idea, but I'm also moving in a position by position manner. Here it is a little faster. So that was the one that had a position shift to it, is jumping along the neck in a more horizontal fashion. The next one I have for you is more in position, and I'll play it slowly at first. It goes like this. Here it is again. And they're really cool sounding to play them faster. You can move them along in different manners too. They're just really interesting, highly structured mathematical systems that you just sort of put together into a pattern on the neck, and just watch where you end, because that's going to be sort of a target tone to hopefully point into the direction of whatever chord it is at the moment that you happen to be playing. So those are a lot of fun to work on, really interesting to mess around with. But I have one more example for you. This one here is probably applying one of my favorite attributes for when you want to have a line that can either function on two different chords, or if you want the line to exist on its own during perhaps a guitar break section of a song, or a stop where the guitar gets the spotlight for a few bars. Now, this will be an idea where we have a disjointed sounding lick, but yet the lick will apply an effect where the listener gets the feeling of there being a cycle to the musical phrase. And this will be accomplished by adjusting the ending notes to where they catch the listener with a sort of out-of-place ending note surprise to the line. All you have to do to create these licks is practice selecting different ending notes when you compose your asymmetric ideas. For us, we're going to look at a line here that in the first bar, we're going to be ending on the 4th string, going to the 3rd string, 12th fret to 13th. And then on the second bar, we're going to move down a half step and just drop down to 11 and 12. So the guitar lick itself is going to sound like this. I'll just play it slowly at first. So that was the first bar. Here's the second bar. You can hear that shift down a half step with those last two notes. It's a really interesting phrase. Here, I'll play it in a cycle now. Well, you know, the study of asymmetric lines is obviously a different one. Musical lines that deviate from the typical in-key diatonic ideas will certainly hit the listener in a very different way. I guess listeners who hear these sounds will either like them or hate them. And since the music found in a more common tonal platform has a balanced structure that exhibits more of a regular, repeated diatonic set of patterns, it's understandable why asymmetric lines will often leave some listeners uncomfortable. However, for those of us who actually enjoy this kind of music and we enjoy hearing unusual harmonic phrases, these riffs and licks are not only interesting to listen to, but they're also a lot of fun to learn, study, and play. So anyways, that's about all the time I have for today. As always, thanks for watching. Have yourself a great week, and I'll catch up with you next time. Bye for now.